So this is a lecture about disease and pests, not one of my favorite things to talk about, obviously, but something that's important. And the first thing you want to do is know what to look for that's normal, uh, as opposed to finding something that's disease. So you want to look for what's normal and be able to determine what's normal inside your colony. Um, but one of the things I tell people with this particular slide here is I would never pull a frame, a brood out of the middle of the hive like this lady is doing. The queen, more likely, is probably real close to that frame because that is the middle of the brood nest, and she's liable to roll her queen and kill her. So you want to start from the end, at least the second frame in, and I always try to choose the side of the colony that has the least amount of bees on it, and then work your way in. If you want to take the first frame out to inspect, just make sure you don't have a whole lot of brace comb attaching down inside to the wall of the box itself, because if you start pulling that thing out, you're going to really open up the capped honey there that's on that frame typically. If you see it's a frame and foundation, that's a no-brainer. But if you got a lot of honey in there, it could cause a problem. So I always try to go to the second frame in. I like the first frame preferably, but sometimes the second frame, and then maybe you can push the first frame out. I always like to take two frames out. I do use a frame holder in most cases. Sometimes I don't. It depends on how fast I'm going with the inspection. This frame here is a good, it's not really, I think, a standard frame, but it just shows you a good pattern of cat brood here. Very, very good pattern of cat brood. Is that from the national lab? It might be, actually. Maybe a little, I don't know what that is, actually. Maybe nuke, possibly, yeah. Nevertheless, it's a very good pattern. Very few misses on that. You like to see that. Again, a good solid frame of plastic foundation there, like spreading out. Good cat brood, good frame. This is also a good cat brood here. I want to show you a couple of things. If you look closely, you'll see a line like a V shape going up through there. If you look closely in this picture, you actually can see wire going up through there. Sometimes the wire that they put in foundation can cause the queen not to want to lay in those spots. That happens occasionally, but it's kind of a V-shaped wire going through there. It's kind of bizarre. But they also oftentimes have the pollen right next to the brood, and then the honey above that. Open nectar also, oftentimes. It's a nice pattern, except for the wire, of course. Here's what you can see is a good pattern of laying of eggs here. Fresh comb. So this is what we call uncapped brood or wet brood or milk brood. It's pretty normal behavior here. On the right-hand side, of course, you got your drones. In the middle, you got your workers. Left-hand side, some drones. It looks all white looking. You know, that's your, actually, this is what you're seeing right here. Wet brood or larvae. Larvae, and you can see when the queen lays, she'll lay oftentimes, sometimes starting in the middle and work her way around a concentric pattern around and around. And so you'll have the eggs out toward the periphery when it gets like this, and then as you go toward the middle, the more mature larvae, and that's pretty typical. Likewise, when they start emerging, they emerge from this core outward. And so you have the bees in the middle emerge first, and then the ones on the outside emerge last. You know, oftentimes by the time the other ones are emerging, they've already cleaned up the middle side, and queens come back in laid up already. So the cycle repeats itself. This is called ball brood, and at least one form of it. And what it is, oftentimes it's said, they have uncapped these cells, and you usually see them in a linear pattern like this, or maybe something like this. It's oftentimes said that there's possibly a migrating larva of some sort, like a wax moth or small hive beetle below the comb inside that they detect it. And so they try to kill it, but they have to open up the cells to get to it. And oftentimes they uncap these cells. It's called ball brood. And that's also sometimes we see ball brood, so to speak, in another condition we'll talk about later.
Does this fall under hygiene?
Yes. Yes, it does. So this slide here, you can't see much with it basically, but what it is, it's showing this chalk brood. And this is actually a fungal disease that they get infected in the larval stage, and then it kind of takes over the whole body basically, and and then it ends up becoming what we call mummies, like this. They become hard as a rock, basically, chalk brood, and it's just basically a fungus that Ascosphaera apiis is a scientific name, but it basically kills the bee, and then then they stay inside the cells, and then the other bees pull them out and take them downstairs and try to get rid of them. But that's chalk brood, and to help prevent this, by the way, there was a case of some of this that happened here in the area last year, I believe it was. Some nucleus colonies were brought in that had chalk brood in it. This little condition here is called sac brood, and it's also a virus, sac brood virus. It's transmitted from bee to bee, and I've even heard people say that possibly can be transmitted, if I'm not mistaken, by nosema, possibly. But it's a virus also they can get. I've seen this one time in one colony, but it looks like this right here. The little heads are always sticking up, and this is what the result is. The virus, what it does, it actually keeps the last larval stage from molting. It doesn't molt the last larval stage, and it dies essentially, and the whole thing gets melded inside this sac, and it thickens and it becomes a sac of liquid, and looks like this right here, but it's called sac brood. Same deal, infections seen in spring seem to disappear in the summertime, probably because of heat and less moisture. Some colonies, locations seem to exhibit more pronounced infections. Therefore, requeening or moving the colony to a new location, possibly in the sun, again, may help. I keep most of my colonies in direct sunlight, even though it's difficult sometimes to inspect in direct sunlight outside. It's hot. Try to do your inspections, maybe mid-morning, early morning if it's good enough, warm outside, late in the evening perhaps, but that when our foragers come back. But in the middle of the daytime, it gets hot. We just have to tolerate it. One of the things I've done is get out there and start inspecting my colonies and get so focused on what I'm doing, and then you just keep working, and then you realize, oh my God, I'm overheating, and it can happen to you. You gotta be careful. You do, especially get some in the 90s, it's hot.
Do you suspect you have one of these? Will Tammy come out and identify it for you? No.
Probably not this one, but we'll talk about one that she will. Yeah, this one. So this one now is a little obscure looking, but what I want you to look for here is very early in the course of the condition, you can see some of the cells are kind of sunken. Some of the cappings are sunken a little bit. You would never, the person that didn't have any experience at all saw that, they wouldn't even realize there's a problem. But the slightly sunken, okay, and this is the condition that can cause it to occur as American foul brood. And this is something I have never seen in person, thank God. I don't want to ever see it. I have seen a frame of it before, but it was actually at a EAS conference that had been radiated. And it's nasty. Claudia, you ever see this before, ever in your entire career? There was some cases actually in Kentucky this past year. Yeah, and they had to destroy the colonies, actually. They were brought in from someplace else, though. And I know I was look at one of the Facebook sites in West Virginia, and they had some American foul brood over there, and they were trying to treat it different methods, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Just kill them, get rid of that thing. But yeah, the difference with this bacteria here is Penibacillus larvae is that it produces spores, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one way to really know, two ways actually, several ways you can know about this condition. If it is American foul brood, first of all, it smells real bad. It may not smell real bad at the beginning, but it will if it's an advanced case of this. And so what you can do is find one of the cells that are sunken down and take a matchstick or a straw like this, go inside the cell and stir it up a little bit and pull out this goo, this basically melted pupa essentially, and this goo will stretch out. If it's over an inch like this, that is American foul brood. Okay, then if you see pupal tongue, which is not really a tongue per se, but this has to do with one of the strains of the bacteria that will kill the pre-pupa and pupa in there slowly over time, and so it allows it to sink down as it disintegrates essentially, and it gets kind of stuck on the roof of the cell. And this is called a pupal tongue. And if you ever see that, that is completely, absolutely what's called pathogenomic. It means it's diagnostic of that condition, period. But they're very rare. Okay. The disease itself is rare in the first place. And unfortunately, on the East Coast, up toward the Northeast, even, they see this a lot in American foul brood, way more than we do here, which is kind of bizarre, but I'm just glad we don't see it very often here.
There's been a third one added to that.
Third one?
Yes.
What's that?
The scales.
Oh, the scales.
Florets.
Oh, yes, that's right, Tammy. That's right. You're right about that. There's a thing that third one's the scales actually can fluoresce with black light if you can get them into a position where but you have to have probably a good darkness somewhere to be able to do that.
They also sell the flashlights, 400 nanometer flash.
Yeah. So there's actually they fluoresce a little bit, which is kind of bizarre, but that's something else. When the pupa it basically died and everything is kind of dehydrated, sunken down, the scales lay on the bottom of the cells. The bottom of the cell is the bottom of the cell where the eggs are laid is called the back of the cell. So bottom of the cell, and these scales cannot be removed. They're basically stuck there. And so they're tightly adhered. And that's one way you can know that it's another thing to me. This is one reason I tell you, I personally never, and I'm going to preach it, I never buy used equipment from anybody. Period. I never do. I never buy used equipment from people, ever. I don't care. I mean, you're taking a chance. I guess if you knew the beekeeper and you work with them day in, day out, you might be okay if they hadn't had an issue. But if you buy used equipment from somebody across the state or someplace, old equipment, you don't have a clue about those bees whatsoever.
Unless you run everything to the autoclave.
Right. The autoclave. Even then, it's kind of suspicious. I don't know how well it actually kills bacteria deep in the wood. I don't know. So anyway, I don't buy used equipment. Going forward, there's a test kit you can purchase. Vita makes this, and most of your suppliers will have them. Tammy recommends this, and I do too. And but you should have at least one of these test kits available in your bee stuff, you know, on ongoing basis, just in case it happens. They do expire, so you got to make sure you look at the dates on them. But they make the test kit. I think it costs $13 to $15, something like that. But you never know when you might need one. So how is this transmitted? Well, if there's a case out there somewhere, your bees robbing other bees that have it, contaminated equipment, frames move from one infected colony to another, and your gloves and hive tools not clean and sterilized, spread them from one colony to another. And I always wear gloves, but I wear latex gloves. And I'm a veterinarian, so I use my surgical gloves, which are really thin and they're just great. And they're actually skin tone. And the bees with me, they just bounce off of me if they ever hit me at all. A lot of folks use their hands. That's fine, you know. But I like to use my gloves. Because I get into something that's nasty, I'll just take them off and get another pair on, you know. Plus, I like all this propolis on my fingers anyway. But that's what I do. So that helps. And your hive tools, I have access to autoclaving my hive tools from time to time. I do that. You can also take your hive tool and put them down inside your smoker and puff it real hard until it gets hot. Pull it out, let it actually cool down, and do the other side and do the same thing. You can take a blowtorch to a hive tool and just really cook it real good on both sides. That'll sterilize it on your hive tools. Your leather gloves actually, there's gummy. You know, they kind of harbor the bacteria and other things. So they're, you know, they can carry diseases. I don't know. I guess you can autoclave those, but probably would melt the plastic on them if they have it. I don't know. It may not. But anyway.
This also spreads B2B contact, correct?
This right here? Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. In fact, this is a reportable disease. If you ever suspect this at all, you need to contact Tammy Potter. Actually, in the bylaws or whatever it is, the ordinances and laws of Kentucky, it's written in there, not specifically for the condition, but it has to do with diseases that are like this. you need to burn your colonies, you know, and that's how you get rid of them like that. You can treat the bacteria called a vegetative state with antibiotic called Thailand, but it will not kill the spore. And for years, they would just treat bees with antibiotics arbitrarily. Just give them antibiotics, give them antibiotics, give them antibiotics. Well, in 2017, January, USDA moved in, and FDA too, I guess, but they actually made a rule. You cannot get antibiotics for bees legally without a veterinarian prescribing what's called a veterinary feed directive. Okay, people still get it through, I guess, different ways, but legally you can't get it without a veterinarian actually prescribing it. And that's true with antibiotics for bees and chickens and pigs and everybody else like that too. So a lot of times they just give antibiotics to pigs, give antibiotics to chickens, and just arbitrarily all the time, you know, to help their growth rate, that kind of thing. But because a lot of the antibiotics are used in bees are used in people also, and so starting to get a lot of resistance to antibiotics, and they're worried about humans more than they are bees, obviously, at this point. Anyway, that's the reason. Chronic bee paralysis virus. There's two forms of this. One is basically a slow death over time. It affects the nervous system, other parts of the body. This is not typically spread by varroa mites. At least they actually harbor, they can have the virus in them, but it's kind of known thing that they don't really spread the virus. But the bees spread the virus over time. And that's one type is just basically a slow death over time, and the bees just keep dying off slowly. And the second type 2 is this basically hairless bee syndrome, also called greasy bees. And this black bee, those that don't know, is the same as the other bees around her, except she has no hair. The other bees around her are also black. They have hair. So bees are black, and if they have hair, that makes them look yellow in different colors. So some people say that they chew the hair off of the bees. It might be that the virus itself causes the hair to fall out. I don't really know. You know the answer on that? I don't either. But that's what you can see. See greasy bees. You also see these so-called greasy bees or hairless bees or robber bees. And bees are trying to rob other colonies. Oftentimes get the hair pulled off them too. From bees are trying to protect their colony. So, but this one. Other viruses can do it too.
Do they exhibit any behavior like?
I'm going to show you a video right now. You ready for this? This is the video. Yes, sir.
Those almost look like those poison.
They do. The video. Okay. I'm going to show you the end. This is what you see now. Oftentimes with the insect kill, they say that you'll see the bees kind of way out on the grass and stuff dying too. You know, these bees, you can see some close by, what I've seen, but what the big thing was with this is a slow kill, hence chronic bee paralysis. If you look closely at the bottom here, this is what I found after I did weed eating. Just kind of watch a minute here, you'll see. And by the way, with a colony in the mornings, and these colonies still active, soldiers going in and out like crazy. You know, this is probably late in the evening here. I mean, it's hotter, they're just kind of settled down, but in the middle of the day, they're foraging still. There's still, look at that. You see that one bee is kind of down at the bottom quivering there. So Debbie's at the front door, you know, at the bottom.
If varroa is not a vector, then what causes this again?
It's just a virus they get, and they pass it back and forth to each other. They become their own vectors. You know, they touch each other. It's actually seen in large colonies that have a lot of bees in it. They need more room. And this next actual slide here talks about what to do. This is a lot of reading here, but one possible control measure, I'll read to you what it said. One possible control measure is to add extra brood boxes or supers to reduce crowding, so there's less chance of viral transmission. Kind of like a whole bunch of people in the same room with the flu, you know?
That's why a lot of people put on food supers when they put them on. One reason is give them more room, but also they'll start working that super. They'll start putting booklets all around it. They'll actually start housekeeping that super.
Yeah.
And it'll go faster next year to put it on. But, you know.
So it is important to reduce stress, so varroa and nosema control may help. Performing a shook swarm may help save the colony. which I'm going to try to do this one. I haven't had a chance because I needed queens.
So take it out and shake it.
To perform a shook swarm, remove the old queen and allow them to make emergency queen cells. Then you cut them out. Okay. And then introduce a new queen in a slow release queen cage. All right. After 7 days, she is released, cage the queen back, and do a shook swarm. Is basically obtain a new clean uninfected hive and new frames with foundation. Give it all the foundation out of there and comb. Lay a piece of plywood up against the entrance. Cover it with a sheet or material of some sort. Shake the bees off from each frame onto the covered plywood piece. Allow the bees to crawl into the new hive. You probably even the box too, really. Get rid of everything until you get autoclave, and then release the queen. So you will need to feed the bees 1-to-1 sugar for a while so they can have nutrition, draw out the foundation. Adding a small pollen patty could also be a good idea.
That's the old shake out the EFB.
Yes, EFB. Same thing, shook swarm. And that way you can get all, save the bees. And this may or may not work. I don't know if it's going to work or not. No. But this colony here is a double stack snail grove split, vertical split. The bottom is the problematic area. The top of the box is a different colony altogether because it's separated by a snail grove board. It's double screen. And those bees are fine. You know, so they don't have it yet. I got other colonies beside it, but pray to God they don't, you know, pass it around. But it is what it is. And I'm not the only one that's had this problem. There's several people across who have shown videos this year on Facebook of this condition. Why we're getting it this year, I have no idea. It's kind of bizarre.
You're so concerned about all these species in Kentucky.
Yeah.
That we don't know the origin, we don't know where they're coming from. It's just a risk. It's a risk.
So don't know the answer for this one yet. I'm just kind of figured out. Next one is European foul brood. And I have actually had this before. Don't know where it comes from either. It's a bacteria, Lysococcus plutonius, actually. And so what you look for on this one is, at the beginning, you're not going to smell a strong odor at all. And by the way, this is a pretty advanced case here. You might only see just a few larvae that are off color. One of the things I failed to tell you earlier, when looking at that milk brood earlier, was white. You need to have very, very brilliant white larvae in your colony. Brilliant white larvae in your colony. If you don't, there's an issue. One of the stories I have too about this past year, it was early on in the spring. I had a colony that was doing real good. I pulled I think the first or second frame in on the side, south side of the colony actually, and I saw what looked like European foul brood, and I thought it was. I think, oh, is that foul brood? I treated with terramycin, 2 rounds of it. And I did not do the 3rd round. I got lazy or something. I don't know what happened, but I got busy. But I went back about a month later, and that colony was booming. I was thinking, what the heck? You know, I mean, it was bulging with bees, a single box. And I thought, I got to aspersuppers this thing, and I did pretty quickly. There was no evidence of that at all. So I got to thinking, you know, it didn't quite look like European foul brood. I didn't see the twisted cells as much, but it's off color. So I talked to John about it. He said, you know what you had? I said, what? He said, you had chill brood. I said, really? It had to be. You know, it had to be, you know. But so far I haven't seen this, you know, this year. But what you're going to see is on this one here is the larvae. Let's get a better view here. Okay, you can see if you look at the cells right there, that cell right there, the larvae is turned brown. Any brown at all like that too is abnormal, by the way. And it's also twisted in a cell. The bacteria infects the larvae early on, just like American foul brood, but European foul brood kills the bee before it's capped over. Unlike American foul brood, it kills it after it's capped over. But you'll see them twisted in the cells, almost like they got obviously pain there or something, you know, going on. But twisted in cells, and over time they die, and of course they finally just dry up like this little cell right here, and makes a scale like the American foul brood, but the scales in this condition are easily removed. You can actually remove them. It doesn't look anything like American foul brood actually, but and look at the interesting thing is the queen is still laying eggs. despite the fact they have a serious disease. So she keeps laying eggs and hope maybe she's going to solve this thing. But we'll move on here. So larvae off color, light brown to almost black color. Larvae twist themselves. They die before they're capped. They leave a scale that is removed. No pupil tongue. There's usually a foul odor. In the beginning, you're not going to smell much. In advanced cases, you might. It's kind of a putrid, nasty odor. Just something dead odor. Unlike what you would smell in the fall of the year with a goldenrod, it doesn't have that same odor. It's a different. They have a test kit for that too, by the way. You should get one of those. So how's the treatment? Increased ventilation, sitting colonies in the sun, stimulative feeding, requeening, resistant bees, and varroa mite control, because it's thought that maybe they transmit the disease. Terramycin, of course, you must have a veterinary feed directed. And so far, they haven't had any resistance to the bacteria to the antibiotic terramycin. And over in Europe, they're very serious about European foul brood. European foul brood has nothing to do with European. It's just the European discovered it. And American foul brood is discovered by an American. That's why they call them that. The fact is they exist in both countries. And over there, though, they've gone a step beyond what they have in this country. They have basically serotyped different strains of the bacteria. And they have very serious they actually culture the strains and classify them in different parts of the country. Some of these they actually end up destroying the colony and burning the hive. Some they treat with medication. Some they do shook swarms on. It depends on what strain it is. They're much more involved than we are with that over there. Small hive beetle, Athena tumidae, first discovered in the United States in '97. I have at times have trouble with these. Sometimes I don't. But I will tell you point blank, absolute, go to the bank on it. You have more trouble with small hive beetles in colonies that are in the shade. Period. In the shade. Full sun, they don't like full sun. Hot sun, they don't like it. So you won't see nearly as many of these small hive beetles. And they get a strong colony, especially in this part of the country, they will trap these or capture them, so to speak, and gel them up. They put them in jail. And this is what it looks like if they get out of control. If a colony goes queenless, they're more apt to take over than they are if it's a queen-like colony. But once they get in there and start sliming everything, they destroy everything. So it's a menace. In the South, they have the bees all year long. Like more or less, there's more trouble with them. In this part of the country, wintertime, they will overwinter in your colony, but the larva has to come out and pupate in the ground. So wintertime is not good for them. They don't have them up north as much because it's so cold, but we have them here though. And also the new thing now is Jennifer Berry talked about people. I love to just go out and squish small hive beetles if I see them. They're saying now that actually might cause a problem because they can transmit diseases by squishing them because the bees will clean up the mess. That's a new thing. Oh yeah. So yeah, think about it. Bees are very fastidious. They clean up everything inside the colony, keep it clean, and they're going to take in a mess and eat it. And so keep that in mind. That's something that I don't think anybody's proven yet, but it's something to think about.
With the slime frame, I've seen some people say you can rinse them after you use it. I tell people it's awesome just because.
Oh no, I thought it was a weight. They're gone. No, I get rid of them. If I have it happen to me, I get rid of them. Yeah, I have it happen to me occasionally if I neglect the colony. Just don't get back into it in quick enough time. But I hadn't had it in a couple of years though. What's that?
I said I'm not the only one that neglects my colony. I have probably 5 or 6 colonies that I got into last May.
I mean, it happens. You only do so much in one day.
I mean, actually, not a deep dive. I do peripheral dives.
So small hive beetle can maintain a strong colony. Beetle traps, salt under the hive, kills your grass. That's okay, I guess. Diatomaceous earth. The salt basically dries the larva up as it hits the ground, and then it kills it. And then diatomaceous earth are tiny diatoms, or little sea creatures that are sharp-edged. And whenever they hit the ground, those little things cut the cuticle and they desiccate and die. Housing direct sunlight. I don't hear much about this anymore, but intimate pathogenic nematodes, little worms you can grow on, on your counter and take them outside and pull around your colony. They say they work pretty well. The problem is if they clean up all the mess that's in there, what else are we going to eat? They die, because they don't have anything else to eat. All the pupa are gone. So
Clay soil.
clay soil's hard packed soil. Yeah.
High ground dry.
Yep.
Much worse than.
Absolutely, and not sand. Sandy soil is a perfect environment for them. Make sure your soil, hard clay soil, packed down. Probably concrete would help some.
You left off guard star.
Guard star. I probably wouldn't use that. That's camouflage. It's the type of going to phosphate insecticide. I don't think I'd use that in my colony anywhere near my colonies, But it kills them. Beetle traps work pretty well. When you fill these up, these little beetle blasters, make sure you only use about 1/4 of an inch in there of oil. And I use mineral oil. You can use vegetable oil. Some people put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in there to help attract them better. They do work pretty well, actually. I've seen a lot of beetles in there. They catch them from time, a lot. So, but the main thing is when you go to inspect your colony, take your tile tool and kind of get underneath this little beetle blaster and pull it up and slide it out, sit on top of another hop top somewhere else. Don't forget they're there, because if you tilt this colony up at all and that oil spills out into your bees, it's going to kill your bees instantaneously, including a queen. I've done that before. So be careful with those things and just make sure you don't forget they're there. All right. Other types of things, your little, there's some the beetle traps that can be used. I don't know about the crystals and putting stuff in there to kill them. I've never done that before. Those little Swiffer sheets sometimes work, but if you're going to use those, put them at the very top, up above the honey supers. Don't do them down low, because the queen can get caught in those things. Bees get caught in them too. And also, you might want to take one of those flat thumbtacks and tack it down, because if you don't, so some of your colonies that's really hygienic, they will pull that thing through your colony all the way through it into the outside. I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen. I mean, I know. They pull all the way out. It's crazy.
I've had cutouts that pull rubber bands apart. Drag
them all the way out.
Rubber bands are dragging out.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. All right, this is one of my favorite photos right here. So what is this right here?
And propolis built up, and they had a trap in there for the beetles.
Right.
Caged in.
That was
As
it.
soon as you pop that intercover off, the bees scatter and the beetles scatter.
Right. So when you pop your inner cover off, and beetles are all inner cover running around, guess what you did?
Release.
Jailbreak. You broke the gel. They had them trapped. You let them loose. Time for the crusher.
The other thing I see there, Leonard, is bee space. So between the inside of the inner cover and the top of those frames was less than 1/4 inch.
Yep.
So the bees couldn't get in there because that ledge on the high body is only 3/8 of an inch wide.
Right.
The inner cover is 3/4 of an inch wide. So there's a space there, but there's not enough room for the bees to get in, but the beetles can hide in.
Right. So they probably just put the propolis in there best they could, walled them off, made a little gel,
Right.
and they controlled that.
Courtesy of Zook and Kelly.
Yep.
That's right.
One of my favorite pictures here. Anybody know what this is?
Set up grasshopper. It's like poop.
Is there a mouse in there?
Nope. Those are bee exoskeletons.
Bee, excellent, or beetle.
No, bee exoskeletons.
Honey bees.
Yep.
That ate a bunch of bees and passed it.
Pooped it out.
Nope. That is where a skunk is at the front of the colony and scratched on it. The bees come out, they put them in the mouth and chew them up, get a big wad in the mouth, and they got juices out of them. Spit the clump and just go back out.
It's like sunflower seeds. Yeah.
So if you see those at the bottom of the colony in front, you got a skunk problem.
That's why I told
I've had it happen.
That's why 20 inches.
Yep. The drawback on that is with you talking about the height. I like 11, 12 inches, but I'm finding though that it's hard to get the bugs up here. Good. you know,
My
so,
guess is the second deep. The second deep is gonna be the heaviest.
oh, yeah,
The super's gonna be lighter. But
Right.
that second deep for 20 inches on me, it's perfect. My height,
all right,
it's right here.
yeah. Try to do a snow goal split though. Put a 90 pound on top of that thing.
Throwing that deep up top, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. So I'm rethinking my house stands. I got individual house stands. I'm thinking I need a 6 inches though. There's a trade-off somewhere. Got to be a trade-off there somewhere, you know. Anyway, how much more time we have?
I'm enjoying this as much as you can. All night.
Huh?
We're right at an hour in.
Okay, great. So this is off at a distance. Look at this right here. Experienced beekeeper will tell you what this is. Okay, we got a big problem. Notice how some of the heads of the pupa have been chewed off. There's a little bit of a hygienic behavior going on here. Some of these cells almost look like EFB, but it's well, the name is parasitic mite syndrome.
We were looking at a friend with a lot. It's just last week, but it's so early to call. It might be.
Ugh. Cutty brood, snotty brood, I guess parasitic mite syndrome.
Is that a-
Cutty brood, snotty brood, cutty brood, snotty brood, different names for it. It kind of looks like EFB, but it's not. It's actually parasitic mite syndrome. But the dead giveaway is always mites in there. Look at all the mites on those dead, flattened out. So this is our bad boy here. Number one cause of colony loss in this country. Point blank. I mean, it's amazing how many people every year say, I lost my hive. They died in the wintertime. Did you treat for mites? No, we didn't do anything this year. Happened over and over and over and over again. I don't know.
And typically they'll make it through the first winter, but never the second.
That's right.
If they make it through the first winter, they won't.
Right.
They'll never make it through. If you don't treat, you may make it through the first winter, but you'll never make it through the second.
Yeah. This is actually a photomicrograph of Sammy Ramsey. Talking about Dr. Sammy Ramsey. Electron microscope, electron macro picture. Anyway, it just shows the varroa mite there wedged in between the sternites. And he proved that they actually feed on the fat bodies and not the hemolymph, or what's called B blood. Here's a great picture he posted too. It's you actually can see the arrow pointing to where the mouth part penetrated in the soft tissue between the sternites there. And you can see the pattern of the legs, and over here the white things that the arrows are pointing are the little claws that stuck into the bee tissue there to hold itself in place, to pull it off. If you look closely at the bottom, you can see where the body was laying there. I have this little, my daughter made me a little varroa mite plush thing. And I always take it to some of the meetings. I turn around, put it on my body with a pen, you know, I turn back around and it's sitting on me like this big. And this is a very large.
Yeah, I actually have a picture of
Yeah.
what he's talking about right there.
Yep. A very large mite.
The varroa mite is actually tucked under.
People oftentimes will tell you, well, we didn't see any mites, you know. That's because the mites are on the bottom of the bee most of the time. If you're seeing mites on your bees on top, you got a serious issue, very serious issue. You're probably going to lose that colony. Why is it important, and I'm going to talk to y'all, y'all know this already, why is it important that we treat for mites in August?
Strong colonies early in the winter for that spring.
Yes. So the winter bees, that's the key.
Really starts in August.
That's exactly right. The bee counter starts in August. The winter bees are critical, and you need healthy bees. They're going to produce the bees. They're going to feed and produce the winter bees. Winter bees live 5 months. You don't have healthy bees producing your winter bees. That colony is not going to make it. More than likely. Like you said, it may make it for the first year, but the second, it's probably going to be toast. May not make it through the first year. You got to deal with the mites. I'm not going to go into this life cycle. Most people have seen this before, how this works. One of the biggest things, of course, is the deformed wing virus. They carry several viruses. Over 20 viruses now been identified that varroa mites can transmit. A lot of the viruses have been there for a long time. It's been there for years. Some of them have been there. It's just that they weren't getting into the bees because bees have a natural defense. The bacteria causes Lyme disease is out there. It's out there. But how's it going to get into my body? A tick bite. Black-legged tick bite, right? Same thing with these varroa mites. The bees have natural resistance, and so do we. But if you take a hypodermic mouth part and push it into your body, transmit that disease through your tissue, like you're injecting essentially viruses into your body, that's what happens. And then this is what happens. You get various diseases and viruses, and that's what kills our bees. And once the bees get infected, oftentimes there's so many bees doing things and feeding each other, they become fomites themselves and spread the viruses. And then this is a downhill spiral from there. But this particular virus, obviously, you can see it. And then there's deformed wing A and deformed wing B now, which they say is spreading across the whole entire world, but it's much more infectious. The type B virus is. If you're seeing deformed wings in your colony, a lot of deformed wing bees, you got a big problem. Okay, it's like a flag waving at you. Oh, I got a serious problem here. Viruses that we know, some of them are acute bee, Kashmir, Israeli. I had my varroa destructive virus. I had my bees tested actually about 3 years ago. Tammy came up and got samples and took the USDA, and I think I had the Israeli and varroa destructive, but they didn't pick up the deformed wing virus though, which is interesting. The Israeli and the varroa destructive were there. Varroa controls, non-chemical controls, screen bottom boards, which I have in all my colonies. Sanitation, comb culling, biosecurity. I'm not sure if that helps a whole lot. Drone brood removal. Anybody do that here? Drone brood removal? Yeah. I had some green frames. I never used. I used it 1 year. I didn't use it after that anymore. It's too much work on my part. But they sometimes will help. Just gotta make sure you take them out on a timely manner. Yeah. Otherwise, you become a varroa factory instead of a. But interesting enough, I ran out of deep frames, and I stuck a medium into a colony, pretty close to the brood nest. It was a swarm, and I forgot about it being in there. So I pulled it back out one day. I thought, I forgot all about this. But they drew the comb on the bottom, but it wasn't drone comb.
Oh, really?
It was worker comb. I thought, what the? Because usually you get drone comb. That's one way of doing it too, is you could take a medium. Probably if I had it more at the periphery, maybe, of the brood nest, and may probably pull the drone out on it, as opposed to the middle of the brood nest, So it was a swarm I caught. I ran out of medium frames. Okay, so drone brood interruption, brood interruption, which is what you do a lot, you said. And what that means is, those that don't know, brood interruption is you basically break the brood cycle. Doing splits helps that. Some people will actually cage the queen for 2 weeks. And sometimes that'll help break that brood cycle. And then therefore you'll have more chance for the bees to clean up the mess, get rid of the brood themselves, get rid of the mice if they can, reclaim with resistant stock, which is like varroa sensor hygienic, or the mite biters, or other bees that are good with varroa resistance. Varroa control methods, chemicals, essential oils like Apigard, Apilifar, Apigard's Thymol, Apilifar you see is Thymol, eucalyptol, menthol, camphor. Acids like Midway Quick Strips, Formic Pro, oxalic acid. I've never used HopGuard 3 before. People say it's not that good, but I use ApiGuard a lot, and I use oxalic acid a lot in the fall of the year. Those are two I use mostly. I seem to work pretty well for me. I do not use Midway Quick Strips or Formic Pro. I don't want to bash them, but if you got to be cautious with them because the heat is a big issue. The temperature is a big problem with those products because if it gets too hot, you can cause some serious brood damage as well as possible sterilize your queen. But some people use it. I think it's probably best to use it. If you're going to use it probably more in the springtime, maybe fall of the year if it doesn't get too hot. But ApiGuard I use now. ApiGuard I purchased the tub as opposed to the trays, and because I have so many colonies, that the tub is cheaper for me to do it that way. But I do not use the 51 or 52 cc's they require or advise. I use about 30 of those. I also keep ventilation on my colonies too. With that, I don't close them up or anything, or I just leave it kind of open. I do use the corrugated plastic inserts, but I pull them out at least halfway out in the summertime. And then I use the ventilation boxes on top too. I leave them open because sometimes if you really get this stuff going, it's kind of warm outside. There's temperature restrictions on all these products. Well, these right here they are. Sometimes you can drive your bees out of the colony. So I always oftentimes don't use as much and use better ventilation. It does work pretty well even then. So what do you use mostly, Jake, on yours?
I use your least favorite one, ApiGuard.
ApiGuard.
Just because that's top of our hive, we need strip-based stuff, top of our hive. The drops of strip-based stuff, it's either that or stand to kill us for it. And I've had
Use Apistan?
Oh, or no, I'm not saying use that. That's what the strip box is.
Oh, okay.
Someone has come to the way to use ApiGuard in a strip, but it's not manufacturer approved.
Yeah.
But I usually try to use ApiGuard in when I spring and use Formic or Max, just because if you're having enough trouble using street in the spring,
Right.
stabbing the calves. August, ApiGuard, because there's no super zombie carriers, and I don't super in the fall.
Right.
If I have trouble after that, I use Max just because there's no.
Yeah.
And then on South, I think
I don't think ApiGuard gets in the comb, if it does it.
say
I don't think ApiGuard gets in the comb if the wax does it.
it does not contaminate wax.
Wax.
It's one of those ones where it's considered once a box has been used with it, everything in there is no.
Okay. Makes sense. ApiGuard is Amatraz, and I've used that before in veterinary medicine to kill mange mites, Hemodex mange. But it's been used in cattle called tactic to kill ticks and stuff on cattle too.
That's still being used as tactic in beehives.
Oh yeah. But it is a good product to use. I mean, it's actually pretty safe, really, for the most part, and it doesn't have a lot of contamination, and it's not temperature restricted. So synthetic ApiGuard, you do not want to use Apistan or Checkmate. Those are shown highly resistant, at least at this point. Some people will say that they may not be as bad as they used to be because we hadn't used them so long. Maybe the mites are now able to be killed by it again. I don't know in case that's true or not, but I would use them.
There are some nukes in Florida that are highly contaminated with
Oh, yes. Those do get in your comb a lot, fat soluble. Oxalic acid vaporizers, that picture on the top left doesn't exist anymore because the company went out of business, especially Mountain Bees. But another company took it over essentially, and I think it's called, is it Epibioxal, something like that? Epibioxal.
It's whoever does.
Peter Farmer. They have one that's oxalic acid. Some folks will use just the wood bleach or oxalic acid from Florida Laboratories. People use that too a lot. If you go legally, you want to use what's approved on the label. Different types of vaporizers. I do have the one on the top right. Has a timer on it. I like it real well. Although I don't use it anymore, but I still have it, and I used to loan out to people a lot. I have the Pro Vape 110. There's other products out there too that also does the same thing as this does, more or less. Thermal treatment of mites. It does work, I think, but it's just too. I don't know. I don't think we have time to do that many hives. It's just.
It's good to be at one hive.
One hive, yeah, but it's not good for a bunch of hives. It's just too time
We do
consuming.
have a beekeeper in our group that does it,
Really?
but I haven't heard a lot about it.
She was real excited and she was taking my kids. She was going to share the info with us, and then we just never heard back.
2 hours and 40 minutes per hive. It's a long time.
And that's a
This thing right here, I'll use this right here in my hive, that little Man Lake or Kelly's rather. And I finally decided to go with this. It cost me money, $400 some, but it literally cut my workload in about 3 hours. I really reduced 3 hours of work. I'm thinking, you work out there without things for, oh my gosh, 4 or 5 hours, you're exhausted. At least I am. Time consuming. Testing for all mites, recommended by the Honeybee Health Coalition 4 times a year. I don't do it that many times, but a lot of people do. Supposedly alcohol wash is the best way to do it. Easy check. I've got one of those. You can make your own and just take a wide mouth mason jar and the lid and take some memory hardboard cloth and make a little round screen and pop it down in there. Put your alcohol down in, get a half a cup of bees and put in there. You want to make sure you take the bees off the on a brood frame, no queen, of course, and stick them in there. You can go ahead at that point, put your regular lid on there, and then shake it real good, and then just really pulverize those bees real good. Of course, it's going to kill them, and then put the screen back on there and just pour them into something that you can read, like a plastic tub or something. I like to swirl them with the Easy Check. There's 2 levels, and Jake was graciously pointed out to me last year because I didn't read the fine print. But you fill it up basically to the bottom of this little basket in here in the beginning. And I always just use a tub, plastic tub, and I just take a brood frame on, shake it off in there, let all the foraging bees fly out, get it on the corner, and give me a measuring cup, half a cup of bees, and throw them in there. And then I cap it off and then shake it up. Actually, at that point, I put the frame back in the colony that we pulled out, and then I come back and shake the bees up. And then you want to add the liquid, the alcohol. Some people use pure alcohol. They recommend using like a diluted alcohol. It talks about how to do it on the instructions. But you fill it back up to the top of this label here. There's a line right there on the top of the label. And you just put the alcohol there. And I really just shake it up hard and beat the bees really bad. Just shake them up to I always tell people, shake them up until you get tired and shake them some more, and then try to get as many mice off as you possibly can. And then I take it and I swirl it around and around and around several times in a swirling motion to try to get the mice to come through and then read them. And of course, it's pretty, if you have 300 mites, 300 bees rather, and you have 3 mites in there, it's 1%. 6 bees, that's 2%. And if I see 1%, typically I'm going to go ahead and treat. I don't wait for the 2%. I'll treat at 1%. I don't want to see any mice if I can help it. So after you treat for your bees, you should go back and test again to make sure that the treatment actually worked. Any questions on that? Everybody knows how to do this. This is pretty common.
Now the easy, that jar is the only way to go.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
mason jar or check?
Easy check.
Easy check.
You can buy it for 15 to 20 bucks.
20 bucks.
Yeah.
Then the bees that are just in the tub, bees took off at the tub.
Yeah.
Find their way back.
Well, no, what I do is I take them off in the tub. I let the foragers fly out because the bees you want to test are the nurse bees, really, the ones that are inside on the brood comb. And then I take my half a cup, scoop in here. Then I take the remaining bees and take the tub back over to the hive and just kind of dump them back in. All right.
One thing you want to make.
Sometimes the reason you want to do that is because some of those bees never been outside the hive before. They don't have a clue where the hive is.
But you want to make sure that you don't put the queen.
That's right. Check
But
that.
really look for that queen. Look for that queen. Let some other people look.
Yeah.
Everybody look for it.
Look for the queen. A lot of times, if I'm doing any kind of work where I'm trying to do a lot of extra work and splitting the colony for snell growth splits, that kind of thing, I put the queen in the queen cage. I catch her by her wings, right in there. She goes in my pocket. That way I know. Or I take a leaf on her frame and I put the frame in maybe in one of those corrugated plastic nuke boxes over here somewhere in the shade until I'm ready. And I go back and get her and do what I got to do to manipulate that frame to cut queen cells out or whatever I'm trying to do. You know.
One of my field days we were doing heroic washes, and we had this couple frames out for quite a while. We had them on some frame racks, and we were talking a lot and looking at frames. When everything was said and done, and that was over, I went and got some dinner. It's just how I am. I always just wanted to come back out and make sure everything was like it's supposed to be in the bee garden. I like that hive because all my tables were there, and I started to move some tables around. I noticed about 30 bees on the ground behind the hive, and the queen was in there.
Yep.
And I knew that she had to put the hive that we messed with on that stand, and I put her by the front door, and she went right in. So it can happen. It can happen.
Yeah, a lot of times if you put the queen, it's best to put them in a box on the frame she's on. But same thing happened to me once before. I pulled the frame out and the queen was on it, but there wasn't a whole lot of stuff on there, just some honey. But she was on the frame, so I put her aside. Back later on, I was actually getting a starter hive ready for grafting. I went back, get the frame. She wasn't on there, just like it happened to him. I looked at it and said, "Don't move." Literally, don't move. Clump of bees about 5 or 10 foot away was over here. I think, oh my gosh, you kidding me? Went over there. There she was. You know, she come off that frame and she's over there walking around. A bunch of bees around her. So that was pure luck getting at her back. You know. And of course, every day I had the Hilo Queen and I had a nucleus colony. I was going through trying to look at some brood frames in there. And she's marked, you know, she got a mark on her. And I know she's on a certain frame. I went back to pull the frame and I couldn't find her. I kept looking and kept looking and kept looking through the whole colony again. It's only 5 frame nuke. Couldn't find her. Set the frame down, went through it again and couldn't find her. I think, oh my God. I thought because some bees fell off in the grass for a second, just kind of fell off the frame. And I thought, surely not. I looked inside the concrete box and everywhere for it. I couldn't find her anywhere. And I was getting frustrated, thinking, oh, I can't believe I just lost that Hilo Queen. So finally, I just kind of I looked down and she was sitting on the top of the frame right there, not moving. I'm thinking, no way. You know, she had the I don't know where she was, but she wasn't there earlier. It's just things crazy happen like that. I had them fly out of mating nukes too before, and but somehow they managed to get back in. They'll fly back in there sometimes or crawl back in. Okay. Everybody knows about this website here. Maybe Health Coalition's free website. I do recommend it. They have a Aurora management tool. So we're going to keep moving real fast here. I know it's getting late. Dysentery. People say, well, it's caused by nosema. Not necessarily. Okay. Most people agree that dysentery is not, nosema does not cause dysentery. Dysentery can help spread nosema, and nosema ceranae or serrana is the one that's more active now versus nosema apis. Those that don't know what nosema is, it's a microsporidial organism, fungal disease. Nosema ceranae is more apt to cause a problem, especially even in summertime. It causes queen supersedure, reduced function of a lot of the hypopharyngeal glands. The bees actually mature too fast and they die quicker. So cause a lot of problems in the digestion with the enzymes, and it starves to death essentially, what it amounts to. Some non-specific signs that can also be seen with other conditions, like bees unable to fly or fly well, bees seem trembling and quivering, bees seen crawling aimlessly. K-wing is controversial. We think that maybe Nosema apis calls K-wing, but Nosema serenade does not, according to most people now. Abdomens distended, bees not taking syrup. Bees abandoning the colony, leaving the queen and brood behind. So there's a lot of things that Nosema can do. Nosema serenade can cause a colony to die within 8 days after exposure. Appears to affect foraging bees the most because they live longer. They have more time for the stuff to build up in the intestinal system. Year-round risk, not just early spring like Nosema apis did. Treatment: protect from cold winds in winter, provide fresh clean water. Young queen, locate hives in sunny sites again. Adequate stores of honey and pollen, keep only clean combs, sterilize soil frames and boxes. And then my question is essential oils. One of the things I do, not going to get really into it, it's not that much, but I actually use, we'll go back a minute. I give my bees a concoction of essential oil used in the fall of the year. Melaleuca or in wintergreen, Melaleuca is tea tree oil. It's like I make an emulsion out of that and I give it to them, just a quart. I give a quart, it's actually just a mixture of that put into some 1-to-1 sugar syrup, 2-to-1, a quart of that in each one of the colonies in the fall of the year. And I think it helps them. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I last year I was 18 out of 18 coming out of winter. This year I had 33 out of 33 come out of winter. Only one colony did have a queen in it. All the rest of them survived. I have a great survival rate.
These two with the sugar water, like maybe how
Um,
many drops of each?
if I can find it here. I don't have it listed here on this thing, but I can show you what I do.
Kind of like honeybee healthy
Yeah,
mixture, and then you pour that in.
let's see here. Okay, here we go. Tea tree or wintergreen emulsion. The base mix is an emulsion made with 8 ounces of water and 1 teaspoon of tea tree oil. By the way, you want to get the food grade type, the really good stuff. That the Terra brand is expensive. I use Loran's oils. Loran's oils is what it is. That's a lot cheaper, but it's actually it's a lot cheaper. Loran's oils. Pull it up on your computer. Loran's oil. Loran's. See if it pops up a website. Lorann. So it's 8 ounces of water, 1 teaspoon of tea tree oil, half a teaspoon of wintergreen oil, and emulsify in a blender. I'll use hot water with that. Just 8 ounces of water only, but you gotta make sure your blender is cheap and glass, because this oil is very, very strong and it will melt the plastic. Okay, because it's concentrated. All right. Emulsify in a blender, then add water to make 1 quart total of the concentrate. Use a glass blender. Wintergreen will scar the plastic. It doesn't destroy it, it scars it. I know because I use my wife's expensive blenders around it. Wasn't very happy about that. Then I give each hive 1 or 2 quarts of sugar syrup, either 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 2-to-1, with 1 ounce only, 30 cc's of tea tree oil and wintergreen mixture out of that quart. Do this in late summer and then again in spring before honey supers are put on. I usually do it mostly the fall of the year because wintertime I don't have time to do it.
So you don't use any emulsifier in the blender?
No, the blender actually emulsifies it. You gotta let it run for about 10 minutes, until it turns the whole water's white, time to get done. Then mix it up. Do what? You probably could. I mean, you probably could use something in there. Yeah. To make it more emulsification, maybe even a little bit of honey in there. So I can't prove that helps Nosema. I asked actually Dr. Webster, have y'all ever tried essential oil testing to see if that helps them? No, we haven't done that before. Okay, can y'all do that? Do something.
That female has a fruit builder recipe. It's very similar.
That's where I got it from. Okay, yeah, fat bee man. Diagnosis, we just take crushed up bees and look for the microsporidial organism, the microscope. And the counts are out there. I know they are. So a couple of references, you all, okay, here's go back one time here. Y'all know about this because y'all just used it a while back, right? So that's autoclave your colonies. If you have anything you think is nasty, autoclave them. A couple of good references from books. Typical stuff. The Beekeeper's Handbook has got a new edition out now. Bee Vocabulary. The Honey Maker is one John Benham turned me on to. It's Lady Axe from Louisville originally. Great book to read. And my final, I always show this last little video here. My queen. Now I'm sure that Don and y'all, Don's done this a billion times. Hmm?
Wrap up, is there any questions from there before we go switch to this?
We're a little bit behind. That was great. Great.
Thank you. It took me a long time to get that video. You have to, it takes a long time to get them, and you have to do this right, you know. Come on, come on, come on, come on, you can do it. Oh, that's great. Awesome. All right, there's my information.
Thank you, Leonard. That was awesome.
Thank you all for having me up here. I've enjoyed it. Okay, you need email address, and I usually get back to people if I can on there. My apiary doesn't look like this anymore. It's actually got blues and greens and whites and boxes all mixed in with the brown. So I try to get a little assortment there. 33 started out, and I got like 53. Too many bees. I work 6 days a week. I don't have time to take care of 53 colonies. It's overwhelming, to be honest with you. It really is. Too much. And unfortunately, if that happens, you get overwhelmed. They get neglected. So you got to move on quick, though. Every weekend is pray for good weather is all you can do, you know.
Thanks again, Lynn. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.